The Earth was no longer the center of the galaxy, but it was still a place that held a certain charm. Humanity had come a long way since the first rockets had launched from its surface, leaving its atmosphere behind and venturing into the stars. Now Earth was one of many planets in the Intergalactic Council, a group of species that traded goods, resources, and technologies. It was a place where ancient races with advanced technologies and histories, millions of years old, gathered in peace. Or so they claimed. Earth's place among these older species was humble. While humans were known for their adaptability and curiosity, they were still considered newcomers on the galactic stage. For years they had traded their resources and knowledge to gain favor with more powerful species. The human government often made deals that many now regretted, trading away things they didn't fully understand, just to keep peace. One such deal had been the sale of a strange, ancient warship, an alien vessel that had been found buried deep beneath the surface of Mars decades earlier. The ship was like nothing humanity had ever seen. It was massive, made of a material that defied analysis, and it radiated an energy that seemed to vibrate with an eerie hum. Experts could not figure out how it worked, nor could they understand why it had been buried for so long. The warship had been discovered during a routine excavation mission on Mars. Scientists from around the world were brought in to study it, but no one could make sense of its design. It was clear that this was no ordinary ship. It was a relic of an ancient war, but who had built it? And why had it been left behind on Mars? No one had answers, and so it sat in storage for years. Eventually, Earth's government decided to sell it. A wealthy alien collector from the Zanari species, a race known for their advanced technology and cold calculation, made an offer. They saw potential in the ship, hoping to reverse engineer it and unlock its secrets. The Zanari claimed that the ship had belonged to an extinct race and that it held incredible power. To Earth, the sale seemed like the best option. With Earth's economy still recovering from the long wars of the past, the government decided that the ship's value, if it could even be understood, was far beyond anything they could use. After all, the ship was only collecting dust. So they sold it. The sale was quick and the ship was transferred to the Zanari without much fanfare. Earth's leaders had hoped that the sale would bring an end to the matter, that it would just be another relic of the past they could forget about. But like so many things in the galaxy, that was not the case. Years passed. The ship was forgotten, a footnote in history. Humanity moved on to greater things, and the ship that had been the subject of so much excitement faded into the background. Earth's name was no longer associated with the ancient vessel, and the Zanari seemed to be the only ones interested in its mysteries. Life on Earth continued as normal, until one day everything changed. It started with a disturbance in the sky. At first it was just a flicker, something odd on the radar. Then reports began flooding in from across the globe. Something was hovering in Earth's atmosphere, but it wasn't anything anyone had seen before. The object was large, larger than any spacecraft the humans had ever encountered, and it was moving in a strange, erratic pattern. As it descended, it began broadcasting a message in a language no one understood. For days, the planet's scientists and engineers worked around the clock, trying to decipher the signals, but nothing seemed to make sense. The object didn't belong to any known species, and the way it moved, almost like it was alive, sent shivers down everyone's spine. Then, it happened. The object landed, right in the middle of Earth's largest city, New York. It wasn't a crash landing, but a slow, deliberate descent. The world watched in awe as the massive ship touched down, its sleek black surface reflecting the sunlight in a strange, almost hypnotic way. The air around it shimmered as if the very atmosphere had bent in response to the ship's presence. And then, the impossible occurred. A flag unfurled from the ship. The flag was unmistakable. It was the flag of Earth. The same symbol that humanity had used for centuries to represent their unity, their strength, and their place in the galaxy. But how could this be? Earth had sold the ship years ago. It had belonged to the Zanari, not humanity. Yet here it was, bearing Earth's flag, hovering above the city like a forgotten ghost from the past. The people of Earth watched in silence. It was a moment that would change everything. The entire world held its breath as the ship sat unmoving in the center of the city. No one knew what to do. No one knew what this meant. The governments of Earth scrambled to respond. Military forces were placed on high alert, and emergency protocols were activated, but no one knew what this alien ship wanted. Was it a sign of peace? Or a declaration of war? Was this some kind of test? Or was Earth's fate about to be sealed in a way no one could understand? For the first time in years, the people of Earth were afraid. The stars which had once seemed so distant and safe now felt far too close. The ship remained silent as though waiting for something. What was it waiting for? Who or what had brought it back to Earth? The mystery deepened with every passing minute. Scientists from every corner of the planet were called to investigate. Some suggested that the ship was perhaps a relic from Earth's distant past, brought back by some cosmic force. But that theory was quickly dismissed. Others believed it was a message from the stars, a sign that humanity had been chosen for something greater. But there was still one question that remained. Why now? Why had the ship returned after all this time? As the days passed, the ship remained in place, its massive form casting a shadow over the city. The air around it hummed with an energy that no one could explain. People gathered in crowds, staring up at the ship in wonder, as if waiting for it to tell them something. And then, the message came. It wasn't a message from a government or an alien race. It was a simple, chilling statement broadcast across every communication channel on Earth. It was a message from the ship itself. I have returned. Earth, you are not alone. The world was in a state of shock. People around the globe watched with bated breath as the mysterious ship, still hovering above New York City, remained silent. The message it had broadcasted, I have returned. Earth, you are not alone, echoed in the minds of everyone who had heard it. The implications were staggering. What did it mean? Why had the ship returned under Earth's flag? Was it a sign of something more, or was it a threat? Days passed without any further communication from the vessel. Despite the silence, Earth's governments were in full crisis mode. Military forces were stationed around the ship, though no one knew what action to take. Weapons were locked and ready, but there was no indication of hostility from the ship. It didn't move. It didn't show any signs of aggression. It simply existed, and it carried Earth's flag, which no one could explain. The United Nations convened an emergency session. Leaders from every nation arrived in the massive, high-tech conference hall to discuss the situation. The eyes of the world were on them, waiting for answers, but the truth was no one had any. What are we supposed to do? President Maria Lopez of the United States asked, her voice strained with the weight of the decision she had to make. We don't even know if it's friendly. The last thing we want is to provoke something we can't control. Do we have a choice? Replied General Marcus Patel, head of Earth's unified forces. The ship is here and it's not leaving. Our only option is to find out who or what it is, and fast. Agreed, said Professor Natalie Zhang, a leading astrophysicist. She had been working with other scientists across the globe to understand the ship's origins. From the data we've gathered, we know it's not of human design. It's alien, and the technology is unlike anything we've encountered before. But one thing is clear. It seems to recognize Earth's flag, which is not only strange but impossible. It's impossible that it could be ours, President Lopez said, shaking her head. We sold that ship to the Zanari years ago. We thought it was junk. We don't know what happened after that, General Patel said grimly. The Zanari could have altered it, modified it, or maybe the ship chose Earth. We can't assume anything until we understand the situation fully. The conversation grew tense. Scientists and military leaders from around the world were giving their input, but none of them had any answers. The ship was an enigma. The more they tried to analyze it, the less they understood. All they knew was that it had returned and it carried Earth's flag. Back in New York, the people gathered under the shadow of the massive craft, their faces filled with curiosity and fear. News reporters had gathered, capturing every moment of the event. Crowds of civilians stood in awe, unsure whether to cheer for the return of something so mysterious, or to run in terror from the unknown. The government had tried to limit access to the area, but it was impossible. The whole world was watching. Social media was flooded with videos, photos, and live broadcasts. Everyone wanted to see the ship, touch it, or simply know what it was. In the weeks that followed, Earth's leaders began to explore the ship more thoroughly. A team of scientists, engineers, and military personnel were assembled to board the ship and make contact. They were the best Earth had to offer, a diverse group of individuals from all walks of life, all with one goal: to understand the mysterious ship and figure out what it wanted. As they approached the ship, the same eerie hum filled the air. The closer they got, the more intense the energy seemed to become. It was as if the ship was alive, breathing, waiting. There was a deep, pulsing energy that emanated from its hull. No one could explain it. Professor Zhang, the lead scientist, was the first to step forward, a small device in her hand that she hoped could decipher the ship's language. "Let's not jump to conclusions," she said, as her team followed her up the ramp that led into the ship's belly. "We need to approach this calmly. There could be a logical explanation for all of this." Inside, the atmosphere was thick with a strange energy. The walls were made of smooth, metallic surfaces, but they seemed to shift and shimmer in a way that defied understanding, as if the ship itself was trying to communicate, adjusting its form to whatever it needed to in order to be understood. "Do you feel that?" one of the military personnel, Lieutenant Carter, asked. His voice was low and filled with awe. "It's like the ship is alive. It's watching us." Professor Zhang nodded, feeling a chill run down her spine. "That's exactly what I think is happening. This ship may have an intelligence of its own, something we haven't encountered before." They moved deeper into the vessel, following the humming sound that seemed to guide them through the halls. The walls pulsed with a strange light, and as they walked, they noticed that the ship's interior was vast. It seemed to go on forever, stretching out into unseen depths. At the heart of the ship, they came to a room that was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were lined with intricate alien symbols, and in the center of the room stood a large console, glowing softly. It was here that they finally found something they could understand. A message, written in Earth's language. The words appeared on the console's screen. "The time has come. Prepare. The trial begins." The scientists and military personnel exchanged confused glances. "The trial?" Lieutenant Carter echoed. "What trial?" "That's what we need to figure out," Professor Zhang said. "But this confirms something. The ship is not just a relic of the past. It's a message. A challenge, perhaps." Suddenly, the ship's hum grew louder. The energy around them intensified, and the console lit up with strange symbols, rapidly shifting across the screen. It was as if the ship itself was reacting to their presence. "We need to get out of here," General Patel said, his voice laced with urgency. "This is not safe. We don't know what this ship can do." But before they could leave, a voice boomed from the ship's core. It was deep, resonant, and unmistakably human. The voice spoke, but it was not any voice they recognized. It was as if it had been waiting for them. "You are ready," the voice said. "You will lead or you will fall. Choose." The team stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. What did it mean? Who was this voice? And why did it speak of leadership and falling? "I think it wants us to make a choice," Professor Zhang said, her voice trembling. "It wants us to take responsibility for something, to step up." But for what? Suddenly the lights in the room flickered. The walls shimmered once more, and the ship's hum deepened. The voice continued. "The trial begins. Earth, your time has come." And then the ground beneath them shook. The ship began to rise, slowly at first, then faster, as if ready to take off. The team rushed to exit the ship, but as they did, the door slammed shut with a deafening sound. They were trapped. The ship's engines roared to life, and the world outside seemed to blur as the vessel lifted from the ground. It wasn't heading to space, though. It was heading somewhere else. Somewhere they couldn't see. The team inside the ship realized with rising dread that they had no idea what was coming next. But one thing was certain. Whatever it was, Earth was no longer simply a spectator in the galaxy. It was about to play a part in something much larger than it had ever imagined. The trial had begun. The ship's interior had become an eerie labyrinth. The walls shimmered and shifted as if they were alive, responding to every movement of the people inside. The once silent vessel was now filled with strange noises like whispers carried on the wind. The hum that had accompanied their arrival was louder now, reverberating in their bones, making the air feel thick with tension. Professor Natalie Zhang stood at the front of the group, trying to keep her nerves under control. She had always prided herself on being a rational scientist, but nothing about this ship made sense. Everything they had learned so far only raised more questions. This wasn't just an alien ship, it was an enigma, and they were now part of it, trapped in a puzzle they could barely begin to understand. "Where are we going?" General Marcus Patel asked, his voice low as he took cautious steps behind her. "What does it want from us?" "I wish I knew," Professor Zhang replied, her gaze fixed ahead. "But I don't think we're supposed to know everything yet. It's like the ship itself is guiding us." The group had been walking for what felt like hours, their only company the pulsing hum of the ship's energy and the faint glow of the walls around them. The ship seemed to stretch on forever. Every turn led to another vast chamber, filled with alien technology they couldn't identify. Some objects seemed to float in the air, held by forces they couldn't comprehend. Others were more familiar, tools and devices that looked like they could have been designed by humans, but with an alien twist. "I don't like this," Lieutenant Carter muttered, rubbing the back of his neck as he walked beside Professor Jung. "It's like we're being watched. I feel like we're not alone here." Professor Jang didn't respond immediately, her mind focused on a glowing console at the far end of the room. The symbols on its surface were shifting rapidly, like a language they couldn't quite decipher. Every time they looked away, the symbols changed. There was a pattern to it, but it was too complex to crack. "This console," she said after a moment, pointing to the glowing surface. "We need to study this. Maybe it can help us understand what's going on." The group gathered around the console, their eyes scanning the shifting symbols. Suddenly, the symbols stopped, freezing in place. For a brief moment, the ship's hum softened and the room became eerily quiet. The console displayed one word, written in clear, simple English. "Welcome." The word hung in the air for a moment, as if the ship itself was acknowledging their presence. Then, before anyone could speak, a deep voice echoed from the walls, not in any language they understood, but in a voice that was unmistakably human. "Welcome. Earth, you have been chosen." The group froze. It was the same voice they had heard before, the one that had spoken through the ship's core, the voice that had told them the trial had begun. "What does it mean, chosen?" General Patel asked, his voice tight with concern. Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath their feet shifted. The walls around them glowed brighter, and the air hummed with a new intensity. A door they hadn't noticed before opened slowly, revealing another vast chamber. Inside, the team could see an object, massive and cylindrical, suspended in the center of the room by what looked like energy beams. Professor Jang's eyes widened as she approached the object. It was an artifact, its design more intricate than anything she had ever seen. She could feel the energy radiating from it, an almost tangible force that tugged at her senses. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice filled with awe. The others crowded around her, staring at the artifact. Lieutenant Carter reached out a hand, but General Patel stopped him. "Don't touch it," he warned. "We don't know what it is. It could be dangerous." "I think it's some sort of key," Professor Jung said slowly, stepping closer to the artifact. "I've never seen anything like it, but I've been studying some ancient human relics that have a similar design. It's possible this artifact is a key to unlocking the ship's secrets." As she spoke, the artifact began to hum, reacting to her presence. The walls around them seemed to pulse in time with the hum, as if the ship was listening to them. The symbols on the wall shifted again, this time displaying a map of sorts, a chart of distant stars, some familiar and others unknown. "What is this?" Lieutenant Carter asked, his eyes scanning the chart. "Is this a map of the galaxy?" Professor Jang nodded, her gaze fixed on the map. "Yes, it looks like a star chart. But why would it show us this? What is it trying to tell us?" Before anyone could answer, the voice echoed through the chamber once more. "The trial has begun. You must choose." The voice seemed to come from everywhere, surrounding them in a wave of sound. The team looked around, but there was no one there, only the voice and the ship that seemed to be alive with energy. "Choose?" General Patel repeated, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What are we supposed to choose? What is this trial?" The ship responded as if it had anticipated their question. "You must decide. Will you lead or will you fall?" The words hung in the air, and for a moment there was nothing but silence. The room grew heavier, the air thick with an energy that was both inviting and terrifying. "This is insane," Lieutenant Carter muttered, stepping back from the artifact. "We don't even know what we're supposed to be doing here. How can we lead?" "We need to understand what this trial is," Professor Jung said, her voice firm. "This ship, this relic, it's part of something much bigger than us. If it's asking us to lead, then we need to figure out what that means. We can't back down." General Patel took a deep breath. "I agree. But we need to be prepared for whatever comes next." Just as he spoke, the ship's hum grew louder, and the energy around them intensified. The artifact in the center of the room began to glow brighter, its cylindrical shape shifting as if it were alive. The walls around them seemed to close in, narrowing the space until the room felt impossibly small. Then, The ground shook. A massive door at the far end of the room began to slide open. Beyond it was a vast chamber, and in the center of that chamber a figure stood. The figure was human, or at least it looked like one. But it was different. Its body was partially translucent, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. It was as if this being had stepped out of another time, another dimension. The voice boomed again. The trial is not just one of strength, but of heart. Will you lead Earth? The figure stepped forward, and the door behind it closed with a finality that sent a chill through the group. They were trapped in the chamber with no way out. This was it, the trial had begun. Professor Zhang took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had no idea what was happening, but one thing was clear. Humanity had been chosen for something far greater than they had ever imagined. The future of Earth now depended on their ability to face this challenge. "Let's do this," she said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "We don't have a choice." The chamber was still. The strange being stood before them, its glowing eyes filled with an ancient, unreadable depth. The walls of the room pulsed with energy, reacting to its presence. The air was thick with a tension that made it hard to breathe. Professor Zhang, General Patel, and the rest of the team stood frozen in place, staring at the figure in front of them. They were no longer on Earth, they were somewhere else. Inside the ship, a place that felt both real and unreal at the same time. The being spoke again, its voice a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in the bones of everyone present. "The trial has begun. You have chosen to lead, but to lead is not to rule. To lead is to endure. The galaxy watches. What will you do, Earth?" General Patel's grip on his weapon tightened. His instincts told him to act, to respond to this unknown entity with force, but something inside him held him back. They didn't know who or what this being was, but it was clear it wasn't a threat, at least not in the traditional sense. It wasn't trying to hurt them, not yet. It was giving them a choice. "A test. Endure what?" General Patel asked, his voice steady but full of suspicion. "What does this trial involve?" The being's eyes flickered, and a soft hum echoed throughout the room as the symbols on the walls began to shift again. The ship seemed to come alive, reacting to the question. "Endure the conflict of the galaxy. Prove that you can unite, that you can survive, that you can lead your people in a war unlike any other. The galaxy is not a place of peace, Earth. It is a place of power. Will you fight for survival or will you fall?" Professor Zhang took a step forward, her mind racing. She wasn't a soldier, but she understood the weight of these words. The galaxy, as vast and diverse as it was, had been built on a foundation of war. It was a cold, unforgiving reality, and now Earth was being thrust into the center of it. They had been chosen, but chosen for what? To lead? To fight? "Why us?" she asked, her voice more than a little shaken. "Why did you choose Earth?" "We're not prepared for war." The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, it raised a hand and the room seemed to pulse once more. The ship's hum grew louder, and a holographic display flickered to life in front of them. It showed a map of the galaxy, but this time the map was different. It wasn't just stars and planets, it was a network of alliances, conflicts, and territories. Red lines connected certain points, marking areas of tension. The display flickered, showing various alien species, some peaceful, others clearly militaristic. "The galaxy is divided," the voice continued. "The ancient races once ruled with power and fear, but now new powers rise and Earth stands at the crossroads of this conflict. Some will seek to use you, some will seek to destroy you. The question is, will you unite your people? Will you rise? Or will you be crushed beneath the weight of the galaxy's struggles?" The display shifted again. This time the map zoomed in on Earth's solar system, and the ship's trajectory became clear. Earth was not just under threat. It was in the crosshairs of a galactic conflict that had been brewing for centuries. The Xenari, the race that had once owned the ship, had powerful enemies. Enemies that had always watched Earth from the shadows. And now, it seemed, Earth was being drawn into their war. General Patel's eyes narrowed as he studied the map. "Are you telling us that we're about to be caught in a galactic war? That's what this trial is." The figure's eyes glowed brighter and the ship hummed again, almost as if it were laughing, though there was no sound. "Yes," the voice answered. "You have been chosen not because you are the most powerful, but because you are the most adaptable. You have survived on your own for centuries, in a harsh and unforgiving environment. But now your survival is at stake. Will you unite your people or will you fall? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Earth had never faced anything like this before. True, there had been conflicts, wars on Earth, skirmishes in space, but nothing like this. This wasn't just about defending a planet. This was about standing up to an entire galaxy. The stakes were higher than anything Earth had ever imagined. Professor Zhang's mind was racing. She had spent her life studying the stars, understanding the universe, but she had never anticipated this. She had never imagined humanity would be thrust into the heart of a galactic war. The galaxy wasn't some distant theoretical place. It was real. And now humanity had been pulled into its power struggles, its alliances, its conflicts. "We can't do this alone," Professor Zhang said, her voice firm with determination. "We need to make allies. We can't just rely on ourselves." General Patel looked at her, his expression hard. "We need more than allies. We need strength. We need to prove that Earth can stand on its own 2 feet, that we won't be pushed around anymore." "We will need to unite humanity," she replied. "We'll need every person, every nation to come together. And we'll need to show the galaxy that humanity is more than just a young, fledgling race. We're survivors." The figure in front of them nodded, its eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. "Your survival will be tested. The galaxy is watching. The trial is not just about battle, it's about unity, about strength. Will you stand together, or will you fall apart?" The tension in the room was palpable. The fate of Earth, the fate of humanity seemed to rest on the next decision they made. General Patel stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We will stand together," he said. "We will fight and we will unite. We'll show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The figure's eyes seemed to flicker as if it were satisfied with this answer. "Then the trial will begin in earnest. Prepare yourselves. The galaxy is not kind, but you may yet prove yourselves worthy." With that, the figure disappeared into the air, leaving the group standing in the now empty chamber. The ship's hum softened and the room's energy shifted. But the weight of their decision hung over them like a storm cloud, ready to break at any moment. As they made their way back through the corridors of the ship, the enormity of what they had just agreed to began to sink in. They were no longer just a small, isolated planet. They were now players on a much bigger stage. A stage where power, survival, and unity would determine the fate of entire civilizations. General Patel's voice was grim as he addressed the group. "We need to prepare. This is just the beginning. The galaxy is watching us, and we can't afford to fail." Professor Zhang nodded, her mind focused. "We have no choice. We fight or we fall. It's as simple as that. The path ahead would be difficult. There were no guarantees. The galaxy was filled with ancient races, many of them far older and more powerful than Earth. But they had something those ancient races didn't have: unity, adaptability, and the will to survive. And if they could harness those qualities, they might just stand a chance. The trial had begun, and Earth was about to face its greatest challenge yet. The hum of the ship echoed in the corridors, a constant reminder of the task ahead. General Marcus Patel stood at the observation deck, his gaze fixed on the stars outside. The vastness of space seemed to stretch forever, cold and indifferent. But he didn't feel alone. Earth had been thrust into the heart of the galaxy, and now, for better or worse, humanity was a part of it. The trial had begun, and Earth's future hung in the balance. He turned away from the view, his thoughts heavy. Behind him, the crew was busy preparing for what lay ahead, coordinating with Earth's governments, organizing military forces, and establishing communication with other species. They were ready for whatever came next, but even with all their preparations, General Patel couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to face something far beyond anything they had ever imagined. Professor Natalie Zhang stepped into the room, her face grim. "We've received the latest reports from Earth. The galactic powers are on high alert. Some are watching us closely, others are preparing for war. The Zenari, they're not happy with us." General Patel nodded. The Zenari had once sold the ship to Earth, and now that Earth had the ship, now that humanity had been chosen for this trial, the Zenari were making their displeasure known. But Earth wasn't going to back down. Not now. "We can't afford to let fear take control," General Patel said, turning to face her. "The galaxy is watching us. If we show weakness, if we hesitate, we'll lose everything. We need to unite Earth and show the galaxy what we're made of." Professor Zhang's expression softened, but the weight of their mission was clear in her eyes. We've been preparing for this, but I don't think anyone truly understood what it would mean to fight on this scale. The galaxy isn't just a place of politics and trade. It's a place of power and survival. And Earth is no stranger to survival, General Patel replied. We've fought wars, endured hardships, but now we're not just fighting for Earth's survival. We're fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. As if on cue, the ship's hum grew louder, and a series of alerts began flashing on the walls, a message from the command center. The galactic powers were moving. Earth's fleet, made up of ships that had once seemed like mere novelties, was now their first line of defense. It was time. The crew quickly gathered in the command room, where a large holographic map of the galaxy flickered to life. The map displayed the locations of Earth's fleet, as well as the positions of known galactic powers. Some, like the Zanari, were clustered in their territories, while others, including distant allies, were spread out across the galaxy. Alert, from the Zanari, Professor Zhang said, her voice steady despite the tension. They've declared a blockade. Any ships attempting to leave Earth's orbit will be stopped and inspected. They're not taking chances. General Patel's jaw tightened. The Zanari had made their move, but Earth wasn't going to be intimidated. They had a fleet, but more importantly, they had the ship, the ancient warship that had once been thought of as junk. The ship was a relic of the past, but now it was humanity's weapon. It could change the course of the trial, but only if they could figure out how to use it properly. We need to show the Zanari that we're not afraid, General Patel said, his voice cold and commanding. We'll send a message, one they won't ignore. The ship's systems hummed again, responding to their commands. The ancient warship with its alien technology had been upgraded, its systems carefully studied by Earth's top engineers. Now they were ready to test it in battle. General Patel knew that this was a risk, but it was a risk they had to take. Professor Zhang stepped up beside him. We need to be careful. The Zanari have more resources and experience. We can't win this fight with strength alone. We don't have to, General Patel replied. We just have to outsmart them. The hours leading up to the confrontation were filled with tension. Earth's fleet was ready, and so was the ancient ship. The crew made final preparations, double-checking their systems, confirming communication lines, and reviewing the plans. The entire galaxy was watching. If Earth faltered, if they hesitated for even a moment, it would send a message of weakness to every species out there. But Earth's message was clear. Humanity wasn't just a young, inexperienced race. They had the strength to survive, and they had the will to fight. The first shot was fired. It wasn't a physical blast. Instead, it was a wave of energy, a burst of electromagnetic force that rippled through space, knocking out the Zanari's advanced sensors. Earth had learned to use the ship's power not just as a weapon, but as a tool to level the playing field. The Zanari's sophisticated technology had been their advantage, but now it was rendered useless. For a moment, there was silence. Then the Zanari fleet moved, their ships appearing from the shadows, ready to retaliate. But Earth was ready. The ancient warship, powered by human ingenuity, launched its first attack, a burst of energy that sent shockwaves through space. The battle was chaotic. Earth's fleet, though outnumbered, was using the alien ship's technology to its advantage. The Zanari were skilled fighters, but they were unprepared for the unpredictability of humanity's tactics. General Patel's orders were quick and decisive, and the fleet moved like a well-oiled machine. Every ship, from the smallest fighter to the largest cruiser, worked in perfect harmony. Professor Zhang watched from the command center, her mind racing. She had spent years studying the stars, but this was something she had never imagined. Humanity was not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to prove that they belonged. And they were doing it with every ounce of strength, intelligence, and courage they had. As the battle raged on, the Zanari's ships began to fall back. They were losing ground, their strategy failing against the unexpected tactics of Earth's fleet. General Patel knew this victory would be a message, a declaration that humanity wasn't just a small, insignificant race. Earth was a force to be reckoned with, The Zanari's flagship, a massive vessel, loomed on the horizon. It was the heart of their fleet, and if it fell, the battle would be over. General Patel made his decision. The ancient ship with its alien weaponry was the key to ending this fight. "Prepare for the final strike," General Patel ordered. The crew moved quickly, coordinating their efforts. The ancient warship powered up, its energy core glowing brightly as it charged its weapons. The Zanari's flagship was readying its defenses, but they were too late. The energy beam fired, hitting the Zanari ship squarely in the center. For a moment, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then, the Zanari flagship exploded in a burst of light, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The Zanari fleet scattered, their ships retreating in defeat. Earth had won. Against all odds, humanity had emerged victorious. The trial was over. General Patel stood silently in the command center, watching as the Zanari fleet retreated. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Earth had proven itself. They had faced the galaxy's greatest powers, and they had emerged victorious. Professor Zhang walked up beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and disbelief. "We did it. We won." "Yes, we did," General Patel replied, his voice quiet. "But this is just the beginning. We've proven ourselves, but the galaxy is still watching. There will be more challenges ahead." He turned toward her, his gaze steady. "We've shown that humanity can survive, that we can unite. But now, we need to build on this victory. We need to lead." Professor Zhang nodded. "We will. Together." As Earth's fleet returned to the planet, the people of Earth watched in awe. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged victorious. The trial was over, but the real journey was just beginning. Humanity had proven that it could stand tall among the stars, and for the first time Earth's flag didn't just represent a planet, it represented a new power in the galaxy, a power that would no longer be ignored.